Hi, welcome back to SRD. My name is Scott.
I'm Ryan.
And today we're going to talk about GMing large tables. How do you do it? How do you not do it? And what to mess with. So dealing with bigger tables is kind of a thing to tackle, and we'll talk about that here in just a second. But before we do, if you guys like these videos, if you like seeing us every week, go ahead and hit those like and subscribe buttons, hit the down button if you don't like those. Those actually help out a lot. And it really would mean a lot to us if you could just, hit that like button. Not that big of a deal. So we came across this post on Reddit, and it talked about, this person who's already GMing an 8-person table, which is pretty big table, but he wanted to add another one because he had another friend that wanted to show up and play. What do you think about that?
In my opinion, 8 is already pushing it. I know as a player, once you get that large, you kind of start to get to where there's long periods for each person sitting away and not getting to do anything or getting to say what they do. So it can cause a lot of dice towers to be built, a lot of phones to come out, which can detract an entire session, basically.
Yeah, so there's a right way and a wrong way to do this. You can run large groups of games, large group of players, and it can work. But I'll be completely honest with you, it doesn't necessarily work that well. You can run a game and people will say if they have fun, but the fact of the matter is that you're gonna have those lulls in time where you're on Johnny over here, but you're not giving Sarah the attention, the idea that she has that's going on at the time. And a lot of times what you'll have is people talking over each other. Yeah. People trying to shout their ideas, trying to get the GM's attention. So I guess the first thing to tackle is should you do it? My honest opinion is my favorite number is about 6.
Yep.
I think
that's where I would be too.
Yeah, 6 I think is a good player, is a good number. It's still on the higher end, but if you're lucky enough to have 6 players, that's awesome. That's great, and just go with it. I think the magic number for me personally is 4. 4 is the absolute magic number where you get the right amount of role play and chemistry and everything in between.
And it also depends on your group. With 6, it kind of lends itself more to groups that kind of have people that come and go quite often. So you may have 6 in your party, but you may only have 4 show up that week. Whereas sometimes if you're at 4 and you have 2 that don't show up, you're at 2.
Yep.
So then you wonder, is it worth it to even play tonight, or should we cancel the session?
Right.
And then of course 1 week becomes 2 weeks, and 2 weeks becomes 4 weeks.
And that's another video.
Yep. And that is another video we're going to be going into.
A lot of times what will happen is, because we have a large group of friends, and we have a Facebook group where we have all of our nerd friends come together, and someone will be like, hey, we're going to start a new game, Dungeons & Dragons, Pathfinder, Call of Duty, whatever it may be. Who wants to play? And obviously, everybody raises their hand, and we'll start a game with 10 or 11 people that'll show up to session 0 or show up to whatever. But eventually, usually within a session or 2, that wanes off. So I guess my first bit of advice is, if you're playing with a group of people that are adults, and you know that life is going to get in the way, it's okay to accept that number of players at the beginning, because I would expect it to probably wane at about the 4, 5, 6 session mark. And that's just because
life happens.
Yeah, life happens. A lot of times what will happen is we'll have that 6, 7 number area of players, and like you said, we'll have 3 or 4 can show up one night, but the other 3 can't. And I know that a lot of people have issues with running games without people, but we're adults, right? We have lives, we have families, we have jobs, we have work. Some of us work days, some of us work nights, and the good old days of having everybody there every Friday,
weekend,
those days are gone, at least for us. Now, I'm not saying that that's the way you guys play. Maybe you have a fantastically dedicated group that's there every week, and that's awesome too. I miss those days a lot. But once you take those kinds of numbers in, sometimes they don't leave, and then you have to deal with how that works. And so I have a couple suggestions there. The first is if you're able to split that party. So if you have 8+ players, which tends to happen on occasion, and they stick, right? Find somebody who's able to GM as well and split that party. You will do your players a service by having 2 smaller groups of 4 or 5 players versus one big old gaggle of players trying to go fit everybody in the same room. And
just simple things like rolling for initiative takes 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and then it's, When you have a lot of players like that, people tend to be more forgiving with their randomness on their breaks. Mm-hmm. Someone will get up and go grab something to drink. Somebody will get up and go, outside to smoke. Somebody does this, and then you run into the issue of when they come back.
Yep.
Did you stay and wait for their turn, or did you continue on with what you were doing? So that's also another video that we're going to be going into.
So the thing is it's just better to split the party if you can. Find somebody who's been playing for a long time and maybe they've been itching to GM, or I don't want to say force them to, but if you want your group to stay together, if you want to have that consistency, there's nothing wrong with that. Another way that you can do that is if you're a GM who has a lot of time, which I'm not one of them, but if you're a GM that has a lot of time, I know what I've done in the past is I've split the party and GM for them both. But on different days. Yeah, different days, sometimes different times.
So you're still tying their story together and everything?
Yep. What I've done in the past with that is usually 2 congruent storylines. Sometimes there are 2 groups of heroes that are working towards the same battlefield, and then like during certain pivotal parts of the story, bring them all together and have that big old game that'll last like 4, 5, 6 hours of combat just because there's so many there. Or you can run them opposite of each other, which can also be a lot of fun. So you can have one group that plays the bad guys and then the other group that plays the good guys. And then so what you can do is you can have if you run the evil ones first, you let the evil guys put out their plots and all other stuff. They raise the village, right? And then the good guys come in to find the farm village completely burnt, and they have to rescue people and stuff like that. And the same thing, you bring them together and clash against each other. And that is a lot of fun to do it that way. I wouldn't suggest them all at the same table, but it happens. So I'm going to give you a couple ways of kind of speeding that up. So number 1, if you're stuck with that many players, my biggest suggestion would be to pre-roll all of your dice. I personally don't like this approach, but it is the fastest way to do it. Mm-hmm. Just hit a bunch of pre-generated numbers and write them all down in order. And as a dice roll comes up for you, as the GM, you just mark it off. So if they are, if you are attacking them or whatever, and the first number is 16, so you just say 16. If it's a hit, it's a hit. If it's a miss, it's a miss. Just go down the line and go ahead and knock all those out. This saves you a bit of rolling, some addition in your head, those kinds of things, and it can save a little bit of time. Another thing that I would do with that is if you have that many numbers is to do 1 initiative for the whole night.
Yeah, for the entire session.
Just go ahead and roll it out at the beginning and go from there, write it down, have somebody else at your table do it. And that's the next part, which is you've got enough stuff to do managing 10 players, let them handle the small stuff. So give them a small whiteboard or a small piece of paper and say, you do initiative, okay? You're gonna handle initiative and you're gonna handle maybe snacks that night and you're gonna handle this and you're gonna handle that. Whatever small duties that you can give out to people, that way you don't have to mess with it. Find your rules lawyer at the table. Have them handle, some simple rules questions.
Yep.
Yeah, just the simple stuff. Nothing that's a GM, fiat, like it must be this way. But if someone has a question about, what does my spell do? Let a player handle that. And they'll appreciate that, actually. You're giving them a little bit of roles, a little bit of responsibility. And honestly, I do that for all of my games, not just my large ones. But anything that you can do to get that off your chest, your shoulders, because it is so much work.
One of the things I like to do is on initiative, on my monsters or my NPCs, they all go at the same time.
Okay.
So if the players roll their single roll for the session, and that's their initiative for the rest of the thing, but every encounter I'll roll for initiative on my NPCs and my players, but they'll all go at the same time.
Sure.
So you're not splitting back and forth trying to figure out. It's like, it's the DM's turn. Because as a DM, you can kind of use those dice rolls to help move stuff along a lot quickly.
Absolutely. So another great tip when you're working with large groups of players is to go around the table, okay? So if you are the GM and start with your left and go around and then come back the other way. And what this can do is you're getting, some people are going first and some people are going last, and the people that are in the middle kind of always are in the middle. But find a way, if you want to have a marker that moves around the table, like a board, like you're playing a board game, it says, well, I'll always start here. But set a timer on your phone or a little egg timer and don't let that go over, because sometimes people will want to, well, they'll want to run their mouth a little bit.
Yep.
And they will, your really role play heavy players will steal the spotlight from the other 9 people you've got at the table. And when you have that many people, the worst thing that you can do as a GM is to ignore them. They're gonna do this. Yep. And you're gonna lose them because they're gonna play Candy Crush or whatever it is that they're doing, talking to their girlfriend, their boyfriend. And if you lose them, they're pretty much they're gonskis. So let them know ahead of time. Like, you have 1 minute, 2 minute per player as they go around the table, and let it go that way.
And if you're nice about it, the first few times you may have to be like, hey, let's your time's getting up, But after a session or two, they're going to get that, and they're going to know what they want to do beforehand, because they're not going to want to be able to not do what they want to do.
Yeah. So in 3.5 in Pathfinder, games are a little crunchier and a little bit more rulesy. In 4th edition too, for that matter, just because there's so many options. We would use an egg timer. Like, you better know on your turn what you're doing and how you're doing it, because we don't have enough time.
Yep.
Like, we'll sit here spending 3 hours killing an orc, which is about what it took for 4th edition, unfortunately. But they have to know what they're doing on their turn. And I definitely would not suggest 10 new players sitting together at a table. If you're going to do large numbers, for the love of God, make sure they know what they're doing, and they know how to game. What game you're playing, and they know exactly what to do when their turn comes up. Other than that, I don't really have any other.
Like I said, my preference is to split the party if you can.
Yes.
I don't like running large groups like that. But
it happens.
It happens. You don't want to disclude anybody. Because you never know. If you were to tell 2 people they can't, play. Those maybe the 2 that would have stuck around, whereas you lose the 2 other ones.
Yep, and that's happened to me before as well. So, thank you guys very much. If you guys like this video, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. As always, we'd love to have you come back every week. Thank you. We'll talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Goblins